Next video should be, I watched 4 silly movies and laughed. Ha 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 ha. You think that makes the big bucks? Huh? Nobody's gonna wanna watch that. Stop pretending like you don't want this! I appreciate you guys caring about my well-being. Drop your silly movie suggestions in the comments below. But seriously, a small break might not be the worst thing, especially since with this episode, that would officially make it 40 disturbing docs I've covered. This could be like the end of our season 1 of the series. Season 2 bigger and better. This being our season finale, if you will. I thought I'd invite a few fellow content creators to personally give me a suggestion of their own. Those creators are Wendigoon, Nexpo, Reignbot, and Nick Crowley. Fucking all-star lineup if you ask me. But let's see what they bring documentary-wise. This is the first time I won't announce the docs at the beginning. I want you to hear it from them when the time comes. So without further ado, let's thank today's lovely sponsor and then see what the end of the season brings. Enjoy.
Got me feeling dangerous. I don't know. They just need my info. I read it real slow. Something tells me that they're fishing with no boat. Find open Wi-Fi telling me it's free, but if I click it, I might feed the enemy. That's a fraud. That's a phony. Cybersecurity is fearing what you don't see. Tell them get NordVPN. Threat protection, we don't get punked like a CM. 30-day money back guaranteed. Serving online while the crowd chants defense. When you use my link, you'll get a huge discount on a 2-year plan plus 4 additional bonus months. Get it at nordvpn.com/MrGG. That's nordvpn.com/MrGG. Or click the link in the description below. And thank you, NordVPN, for sponsoring this video.
You see, while I could just give Gigi the worst thing I could find that's just a compilation of people dying, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be a little bit kind, which is why the documentary I'm recommending is Africa Addio. This Italian film was made by the same creators of Mondo Cane, which is the 1962 documentary where the term Mondo film gets its name, if that tells you anything. And to clarify, he asked for it, and I'm sorry to everyone in advance, except of course, Gigi. He deserves it.
What the fuck is this? Why was this made? Why did you make this? Did you just wake up one day and think, oh, I got a camera around here somewhere. Oh, there it is. Let's go shoot this. I asked Wendigoon, hey dude, I do this silly little series where we talk about some interesting docs, some of them a bit more dark in tone. You wanna watch people die? I'm sorry? You should watch this one where a lot of people die and animals die in terrible ways. I was looking more for like a Super Size Me or something like that, you know? All right, dude, be safe. What did he say in the intro? He spared me and didn't suggest people dying? I mean, yeah, there's probably much worse, just straight up you laugh, you lose compilations of corpses, but this is pretty bad still. Africa Addio is a 3-year documentation of the events that followed the decolonization of Africa. Some of those events include brutal, violent revolutions and the slaughtering of Africa's once protected wildlife. Which, by the way, everyone's got their weaknesses when it comes to disturbing. I think it's pretty easy to spot mine out if you watch the series, but the one that I luckily haven't ran into, and that's debatably my worst, is animals. I can't do animal cruelty. That shit hurts my soul. Like, I had to trap a mouse that was in my room last year because he kept hiding and I couldn't catch him. And that made me sad. Imagine me, grown-ass man, bagging up a dead mouse telling him, I'm sorry. I wish it didn't have to go down like this, dog. So gee golly gee, color me surprised when the narrator tells us, well, with the old laws out and no new laws in, poachers decide it's prime time to run rampant on the once protected reserves. And as we do with nearly every event shown in this doc, we don't skimp on the footage. We hear about the poacher's strategies. This motherfucker's running curl routes over here. This guy's hitting a slant route. We watch it in action, and then we watch these majestic animals slowly die at the hands of these crooked-toothed gremlins. And before I even go on, let me begrudgingly get my compliments out of the way here. The directors of Mondo Cane got some pretty impressive footage, all things considered. I've never seen Mondo Cane, by the way. That does not mean I want to. But as Wendigoon mentioned, Mondo films became these types of shockumentaries, if you will. And although I don't like this doc, these guys did very much risk their lives for a lot of these shots. You can call it bravery, stupidity. There are two different instances I can recall where they probably should have died. Like they were attempting to film Arabs being slaughtered in Dar es Salaam, and there were crowds trying to block the camera from recording the bodies. But they kept driving through, trying to get footage, and eventually a soldier, having a bad day, busts their windshield with the butt of his gun. They haul him out, and apparently, the only reason they don't pop him right then and there is because they check their passports and see that they're Italian and not white. I don't know, that's what one translation said. Maybe they more so meant they weren't British. That probably make more sense. And the other time, to me, which is even crazier than this one, which was being this close to being executed, I believe they're trying to land their plane in Zanzibar, and they are not giving them permission to land. And they decide, well, we're still gonna, because they are trying to document the massacre of Arabs during the Zanzibar Revolution. There are two planes. The plane with 3 German journalists lands first and is immediately swarmed by rebels. Our director's plane also tries to land, but sees rebels hauling the journalists away and also pointing guns at their plane. They actually shoot at them and end up setting the Germans' plane on fire. They're able to safely fly away and decide, you know what, we got lucky. Let's fly back tomorrow. And that's what they do. It says they were waving a red flag to confuse the rebels. I think that was just bullet attractant, because there are no warnings anymore. Rebels that spot them are just shooting on sight. And listen, it's one thing to be confident that you're not gonna catch a stray through the heart when you're in the chopper. But the confidence to not have something vital to the chopper get hit is kind of cuckoo bananas. Yo, who got you smiling like that? You're getting shot at, Mr. Pilot. I know they say most of the rebels just got guns, so they don't even know how to shoot really, but dude, as long as the barrel's pointed my way, there's a chance. And on that note, there are staging allegations, reenactment allegations with this doc, which have obviously been denied. And I don't even know what the hell that would change really. What does that affect? The integrity of this doc? Come on, dog. Can you tell I'm upset? And hey, just when we took a nice little breaksy pie from killing animals, the directors hit me with the LeBron meme. Here go 2 more for y'all. The African government are in this weird, fresh middle ground again and open up even the national parks to hunting. So once a week, to supply the markets with meat, they shoot a fuck ton of animals, carve them up, and sell them to butchers. So that's when we're treated to a quasi-poacher trick shot montage for far too long. I wish I was joking. If I overlaid some dubstep, blew out the colors, guess I got my swagger back. Indistinguishable. And for the animals dying on the outskirts of the park, well, we still want tourism for the national parks, so we gotta hide those bodies. They're a bit too heavy to drag away. And sure, the vultures will pick away at them, but that'll take too long. So let's put explosives in the carcasses and blow them up as the vultures are also feeding on them and kill a bunch of them in the crossfire. Genius shit. And also one thing, I understand people do things differently than you or I might. I understand people have to eat. Don't think I'm sitting here saying, wait a minute, people hunt? Animals? And we're just letting this happen. I'm telling you how disturbing it is to watch them headshot, cut open a pregnant hippo, and scoop out the baby. Not exactly my go-to pick for a video. I'm not sitting here debating, okay, I could watch this baby zebra sniff and whimper at its poached mother at its side, or Nakey Jakey's new upload. What will I eat my quesarito with? And it's crazy that I'm spending so much time talking about these scenes when there is literal murder, human murder as I call it, on screen. They are able to bridge most of the footage that they have. They attempt to draw parallels, and this is technically documented history. Presentation aside, possible skewing aside, possible racism aside. Some people hate this doc, some people think it's just straight up racism, some people claim it's underrated, and people are just uncomfortable looking at reality sometimes. And I've seen some pretty fucked documentaries, right? Heartbreaking stories, stories of absolutely vile people. I've seen some really grotesque shit, just genuinely disturbing stuff, right? But I can't not label this one as the worst that I've seen in this series. It's the most intense footage by far. It shows massacres, executions, war, poaching, animal cruelty, bodies on bodies, and sometimes it's just fucking boring. The biggest crime of all. I don't ever want to rewatch it. And I'm sure, going back to Wendigoon's intro, that there are far worse in this category. But that doesn't change the fact that I do not like this one. Is it disturbing? Undoubtedly so. Next doc.
All right, Mr. GG, what's up, man? All right, so I've got a disturbing documentary for you for your series. I watched this one a couple years ago. It's called Keep Sweet, Pray, and Obey. It's on Netflix. It dives into the FLDS Church and the atrocities they committed against all of their members. It has quite heavy evidence, per se, so be warned, but it's definitely one of the darkest documentaries that I've ever seen. Good luck, you've been warned.
Alright, a few things. I normally would not do a docuseries just for time's sake, so this will be my first of the series. Also, this will be the first entry that I've already watched, back when it released in 2022. I'd already mentioned covering some of the more popular suggestions in a recent episode. You're abducted in plain sight, something wrong with Aunt Diane, don't fuck with cats, even though I've already seen them. So I thought, this entry would actually be a perfect icebreaker for that. Because I didn't remember many details about this one, but I vividly remember thinking the ending to this one was the worst shit ever. The Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Thank God that they shortened that to FLDS. That's a gobble of a title. This isn't your father's theology. Let me run you through the rules for these guys. First rule on Jeffs. This man is the prophet to everybody here, aka the representation of God on earth. Now, there are not multiple prophets, unless you talk to his accountant. The FLDS very much believes in polygamy, having multiple wives. So not only is that allowed, but it's actually a badge of honor. The more wives, the more respect you got. So you would probably think, well, shoot or shoot. People are gonna think I'm whipping lunges the way I'm just proposing all the baddies. But the problem there is, you don't really decide who your wife is. The prophet does. But what the hell does this geezer know about love? He doesn't. In his eyes, he's trading product. You can go to him with your daughter, or he'll come to you, and then he lets God take the wheel. Oh, you're ready to marry your daughter away. Okay, well, let me see. Well, he's telling me that she needs somebody kind of tall, you know, somebody kind of strong. Somebody who's 85 years old. Prophet had like 23 wives then, drastically varying in age. An old pervert in power, someone ring the bell. Now everyone here is driven by the promise of the afterlife, reaching the highest degree of the celestial kingdom. Because according to, and let me check my notes, they are the one and only true people of God. But how do you reach the highest degree? Well, if you're a man, you must have at least 3 wives while on earth. That's right, we're basically betting over-unders for the afterlife. So basically, to get those 3 wives appointed to you, you kinda gotta get him good with the prophet. One example we're told about is a man bringing his 19-year-old daughter to Rulon, Rulon saying, well, you're gonna marry me. Everyone obviously agrees, and now the dad coincidentally gets that 3rd wife that he's been waiting for. Just a little you scratch my back, I commit a federal crime. Also, as far as the women, a little less detail and fun achievements here. They apparently still get a stamped early entry into the afterlife, but I mean, you guys are still happy just being wives, right? Someone's got to clean the celestial kingdom. Rulon's wives weren't allowed to work, go to school. They are with Rulon. They keep sweet, meaning always happy, pray, and obey. Obedience no matter what. So yeah, this 86-year-old is having sex with these girls. The guy can barely fucking walk, is pissing himself, and these poor girls are so detached from the world that they don't even know what sex is. One of them saying they thought babies came from kissing. So when Rulon tells them to do these things, they're thinking, this feels wrong, I don't want to do this. Also at night, each woman, not even talking about his wives, would line up to kiss the prophet goodnight. And we almost clocked the last goodnight when he got a stroke in '98, but unfortunately, evil is often resilient. So this is all bad, right? Women are treated like cattle, and there's this weird spousal MLM disguising itself as a religion. But it somehow gets worse. Warren Jeffs, one of Rulon's sons, starts to get in real close to his pops as his inevitable demise nears. And the little suck-up's plan works. Once he gets any kind of power, even before his dad dies, he starts making everything shittier. He takes all the books in their library that are from the outside world, and he throws them out. They start cutting sections out of science books. He writes a curriculum for the girls to have nothing in their brain except the prophet's will. He is pre-tightening his grip on an already brainwashed population. He starts hurling out threats of the world ending, saying that a piece of the earth with those righteous enough will lift up as the world burns. People are scared, and Warren tells him, we gotta move to Short Creek at the Utah-Arizona border. That's where the earth will lift. God picked it himself. So everyone sells their homes, gives up their businesses, and goes to Short Creek. They settle in, and now we wait. Any day now. This concrete, sky high. I did have to do some laundry though. I don't know if we have time. Obviously nothing happens. And Warren says, it was a test. God has granted you more time. Another chance to become more righteous, more obedient. Lock in. Now I also want to say everyone is taught that the prophet cannot die. When he does, he will rise as a young adult and have more sex. I don't know. So when Rulon actually kicks the bucket in 2002, people are confused. Again, people are literally waiting for him to rise. He's getting buried and they're like, wait a minute, we can't Can we do that? What is he gonna do when he wakes up? But like also, I mean, how long does this usually take?
Okay, throw us up.
Warren then tries to speak as Rulon, convince everybody that he's the next prophet, but people don't buy it. This fucking tweet? God had all these choices. Must have closed his eyes, called Island, and we got Warren. But with some manipulation and help from Rulon's now ex-wives, claiming they had dreams that he was indeed the next prophet, they buy into it. And here's a couple extra reasons why Warren is just a sickly little freak. For starters, my guy was cozying up to his sisters not too long ago. And keep in mind, this is in a community where someone has like 62 siblings and 3 moms, marry their cousins. And even then, his brothers were like, dog. They went and told their dad Rulon and he brushed it off. Yuck. Warren starts to then marry Rulon's ex-wives. My guy called dibs on his dad's widows, aka moms. My moms? And now with Warren in charge, even more rules are changed. More restrictions are placed on the women. There is a surge of underage marriage, which... This guy? A pedophile? That guy right there likes kids? Looks are deceiving. He would perform the marriages for many a man and many an underage girl. Anybody who left the FLDS would be branded as an apostate, which I thought was like some clever biblical insult, but it's quite literally just someone who no longer follows the religion, which no shit. But it's tough to leave the FLDS because nobody's financially independent. The church owns everybody's business. Everybody's terrified of eternal damnation if they upset the prophet. And because everybody has these big ass families, you are leaving so many people behind. And you're also told that the outside world is evil. Eventually, the FLDS and Warren start to get attention from the authorities. So much so that Warren gets up and moves people to Texas now, telling them, I'm only taking some people here, only the righteous, which ends up being a lot of children. So he's splitting up families overnight, and he wants full control. And who's easier to control than the children? With his paranoia ramping up, he's starting to lock down even more. He's got guards, he's got cameras, he's making sure everybody is in full obedience mode. They're checking in on people's houses to see if they have a photo of Warren hanging up. Imagine spending 3 hours getting the feng shui just right, to then have to put this goofy ass face in the middle of it. He's kicking people out that he doesn't trust, why their families stay. He's got all the free labor he needs to build whatever he wants, so this maniac builds a temple. And at this point, he's getting more and more attention. And one of the girls who escaped steps forward and tells police that she was a child bride. And Warren is charged with 2 counts of accomplice to rape. But they can't find Warren. He ends up on the top 10 most wanted FBI list. And believe it or not, this motherfucker is out and about. No, not churning butter at the ranch. He's at Disney World with his favorite wives. He's going to Mardi Gras. He's going to strip clubs. He's buying porn in his hotel rooms. He's living this life that he's demonized to all these people, not even fucking shared with them. They don't know about Disney World. He's having money discreetly brought to him via the new innovation of man driving car with money in a box. One of those dumbasses gets stopped. They said they were giving him an average of about $300,000 a week. Just in case you forgot how much money this operation was bringing in. But the IRS wants to send me letters. Gee, sorry I bought a Brunson jersey. Nixon 7. August 2006. They pull over Isaac Jeffs, Warren's brother. And Warren gets caught, just like the dweeby is, eating salad in the back of that truck. Pick up those croutons. And he is thankfully found guilty. But unfortunately, here he is in this Blue's Clues-ass fit, still telling his wives what to tell everybody else. When he's able to call, everybody gathers around to hear what he has to say. He's still pulling all the strings, and even with this conviction, nothing really changes. I would be shocked if they even knew what the charges were. They have no contact to the outside. He just tells them that the apostates fought to get him arrested. 2008. Someone makes a hoax call to the crisis hotline pretending to be a girl in the FLDS. But they don't know it's fake, so CPS gets involved and they go investigate. And while they're there, they see pregnant teenagers. In comes the police, and their plan is to take all of the children out of there. So 300 plus kids are taken out of their homes, put on buses, and sent to a holding area. Now this is good news and bad news. We're happy that the kids are out of that environment, but the question is, now what? What the hell do we do with all these kids? Send them all to foster homes? Is every mother there a bad mother? How do we prove that? The media gets involved and the optics of this stink. Warren uses the media and has these simple, humble women go on a press tour crying over their babies that were ripped from them. Even though Warren was already doing that. But there they are on Larry King. Oprah is visiting the FLDS, and the Texas Supreme Court, under all this heat, return all their children to their families. But it can't end there. Sure, we put Warren away, but we only got him about 10 years. There must be more evidence we can use to pile on this guy. So with some informants, they're told that there should be a secret room with all the records of everything they need. Every marriage, everything you need to throw the book at Warren. So they make entry into the temple, and the 4th floor is all white. And they find a room with a bed in it on an altar. And they also find a safe, which they bust open, and there's all the records. The evidence of him marrying off 67 underage girls, having 78 wives, 24 of them underage, and the absolute worst part, they find these recordings, and we're given audio of what would happen in that room with the bed. You can hear Warren, his wives, disrobed, being encouraged to touch each other, all as he rapes this 12-year-old girl. And we only hear part of it, but it's just sickening. He's convicted on 2 counts of sexual assault of a child and is sentenced to life. And at the end of this doc, he is apparently still leading the FLDS from prison the way I described earlier. And if you're curious like I was, nope, still alive. This doc is a horrifying peek into this life that I guess many people still lead to this day. It is disturbing, it is depressing. Thanks for the reminder, Nexpo. Next doc.
So first off, I just want to say, Mr. Gigi, thank you so much for inviting me to be on this, because I have been a fan of this series for God knows how long now. But the doc that I want to recommend to you is called West of Memphis, and the reasoning why is because it's one that I have been obsessed with for a really long time now. I'm freaking old, probably like 15 years or so that I've been thinking about this case ever since I first heard it. I watched the original HBO docuseries as well, of course, as the doc that I'm recommending to you here today. And yeah, I'm just super curious about, what you're going to think about it, what your community's going to think about it. And of course, I am dying to see what other recommendations are made here today by other creators. So yeah, enjoy as much as it's possible to enjoy this thing anyway.
Today we focus on the timeline of the West Memphis 3, a story I was completely unfamiliar with, although it may ring a bell for you, especially if you watched any amount of the Paradise Lost trilogy, focusing on the same story with releases between 1996 and 2011. West of Memphis is a standalone doc that will bring you up to speed on the initial case and all of the fallout, and I incorrectly assumed what the point of this doc would be. If you're just as out of the loop as I was, on June 3rd, 1993, Jesse Kelly, Jason Baldwin, and Damien Eccles would be arrested and charged with the murders of Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, 3 8-year-old boys who went missing one afternoon, and would later be found dead in a creek, naked and hogtied. This was not a small case. The trials were swarmed with media. Nobody had wireless mics at the time, so everyone was just lassoing their shit, tripping over Channel 5. God damn it, Fox. And the verdict came down guilty for all 3 of them. Damien specifically sentenced to death by lethal injection, and the other 2 sentenced to life. Now, Reignbot had initially messaged me that this doc adds some updates. Okay, I'm not sure what a follow-up story would really all entail, especially a 2.5-hour one at that. I assumed the 3 people charged for the murders would reveal more in prison interviews that wasn't revealed at the time and tie up a lot of loose ends. But to my surprise, we slowly started to introduce the idea of wrongful imprisonment, police misconduct, and a public fight to release these 3 at the time 16, 17, and 18-year-olds that were accused and convicted of murdering 3 children. And part of it's introduced to us by a woman named Lori, who had been writing letters to Damien back and forth for years and years, and they were together essentially. She was fighting to clear his name, and I thought, okay, I see we're gonna talk to the loonies for a bit. Isn't he dreamy? That guy killed like 8 people. Well, if looks could kill. But then they're showing me meetings in large venues, protests, attorneys working diligently to fight for these boys. And they feed you their defense, their evidence, the prosecution's lack thereof, and moving through it. I'm still in the boat of, okay, there was some flimsy police work at play. These motherfuckers didn't dot their I's and cross their T's, but through the power of stereotyping, essentially, they still randomly got the guys who did it. The proof is in the pudding, and we don't have pudding, but we still got Cosby. Do you follow? And just when you thought you were on the fence, they hit you with their strongest piece of evidence. And those convictions start to look awfully questionable. That prosecution was rotten. And I can't even believe that alone was enough. Like, was the defense also just ass? You guys couldn't defend against this shit? Come on, it's just quasi-corruption. I'll tell you what I didn't like from the very beginning, before I even knew what I was getting myself into. I didn't like any satanic association being brought up in a courtroom as anything more than a fleeting descriptor. Like, there's this officer telling us I was kind of the expert in this regard, I guess, regarding crimes of the occult. He even made an instructional video so police could familiarize themselves with satanic cult activity. And they watched it on company time. Is that not insane to you people? Listen, me personally, I don't like to put my own bias here. Me personally, I'm ecstatic to find out that my local police department can correctly identify the sigil of Baphomet. When do we teach them how to aim? I'm exaggerating, but like, look at this shit.
Another area that you might find satanic ritual carving is in the stomach area.
Didn't have a dummy on set for this one? Really? You bought the pillars, the concrete slab, you got the eerie lighting. Hey, should we like buy a doll or something? Nah, let's just get an actress. Yeah, let's just get a young blonde actress. We're already at the store. There is no way they didn't have a spare CPR dummy sitting in a closet somewhere, gathering dust. Or better yet, use your stomach, jerk off. We need a tummy. You got a tummy. When this man was speaking, I couldn't help but think of the dork from Hell House who swore he was the underground expert of drugs and the rave scene and literally could not name the drug that he kept referring to. This appears to be cult-like activity. Sounded dumb when I first heard it and was incredibly frustrating by the end of it because it seems like they desperately needed a motive and thought, we'll just dive into the angle of the occult and lambast them that way. We can scare the jury into a decision. So I'm sure you want some details. I gave you some key ones, but I do recommend just watching this one. There's a lot here. Now, one big point of evidence from the prosecution was actually a confession that came from Jesse Miskelly himself. Or did it? From reports, I guess Jesse wasn't all there mentally. They say it in different ways, so that's how I'm gonna say it. And through interrogation, he seems to just never get his story straight. Not like he was purposely lying, but there was just no consistency in his supposed confessions. You listen to some of the audio and it sounds like the police just nudging him towards a cliff, walking him to the assumptions that they needed verified. Jesse's trial was the easiest conviction they had at the time because of that confession. But imagine if that confession was treated as hollow as it sounded. There are even a couple people that regret or recant what they said at the time of the trial. Witnesses used by the prosecution to paint the defendants in a negative light. One of them, Vicky Hutchison, met with police at the time and was instructed to like basically get in good with Damien to then just turn around and use that against him in court. The section that I personally enjoyed the most was the section on Dr. Frank Peretti, the medical examiner during the trial, showing these horrible photos to the jury and giving them his analysis. Because after all, he is a doctor. They do not hold back on this man. So I guess at the time, Arkansas was one of the last states to still have a prosecutor-controlled crime lab. Basically meaning the people running the forensics for the trial are not independent. They are working with the prosecution, which isn't necessarily a guarantee for lies and corruption, but a little influence can't be overlooked. They tell us that Dr. Frank Peretti is not even board certified. He failed his board exam twice. And listen, I'll be fair, I failed a few exams in my life. Why do you think I'm doing this shit? You thought I was top of my class and then bought the camera? The fuck? The petty cherry on top here is Peretti references a book by Dr. DeMeo in the trial. It says he's on the first name basis with the forensic pathologist, Dr. DeMeo. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what we call credibility. So, let's keep on that. They reach out to Dr. DeMeo, showing him all the evidence. And he straight up says, the autopsy work is exquisite. However, the interpretation from the findings are completely wrong. Looking at the wounds, he suspects that they are post-mortem injuries. And even more importantly, post-mortem injuries from animal activity. You're not gonna fucking believe this, because I didn't. I don't know if I do still. But they tell us that it was probably alligator snapping turtles causing a lot of these injuries on the bodies, especially the genital mutilation. And I don't know if I've mentioned the genital mutilation up until this point. I'm so sorry if I haven't. But it's important because there were people in the trial talking about how they did that, why they did that, recounting what happened, a story they were told. And obviously, if that's not true, your story is instantly garbage, even though that testimony helped put those boys behind bars. And they don't just reach out to DeMeo for a slam dunk here. They reach out to multiple forensic pathologists that all arrive at the very same conclusion of post-mortem animal activity. Yet Peretti was up and down the courtroom parading this knife around, saying this is what caused all of those injuries. It's clear as day. And then we end with Terry Hobbs, Stevie Branch's stepfather. And you just kind of gotta watch this segment. There is an unfortunate amount of growing evidence that suggests that Terry Hobbs may be responsible for this. And I'm not gonna go JCS psych on you, but this man can't look innocent to save his fucking life. DNA on the scene matches Hobbs. We learn about his violent past. We hear some disgusting, albeit allegations concerning him and his stepchildren that involves Stevie. A neighbor claims to have seen him flagging down the boys that evening that they went missing. A friend of his starts to realize that he was probably being used as an alibi for Terry because their stories don't match that day. And then I believe a family member and a friend of the family, they all come out and just straight up tell us that, yeah, we got told that he did it. That was like the little secret in the family, that he did that. By the end of it, after so many people fought and got in the ears of the right people, they offer the West Memphis 3 a plea, an Alfred plea, where you plead guilty, yet maintain your innocence. What the hell does that mean? In simpler terms, at least in this case, if they agree to plead guilty to murdering those boys, they will be released from prison. This will avoid a retrial and avoid any possibility of the three filing a civil lawsuit afterwards. And there is some hesitation on Jason's end specifically because he just doesn't want to concede to the state that he did something he did not do. But after some time, they all agree. They take the pleas and are released. And I guess that's the happy ending, even though to us, if it's Terry, if it's not Terry, the person who did this or the people who did this are still out there. And listen, by the end of it, I don't know whether these guys are guilty or not. Like, what if it really is that the dumbass people on the prosecution were accidentally right, and the dumbass people on the defense are just more accurately wrong? To me, the smoking gun, more or less, this one vapes, is Terry Hobbs and his complete inability to defend against the allegations levied at him. He's sticking to his story, but with more evidence and new allegations, that story starts to fucking stink. The only person that comes to his defense in the doc is his sister. The authorities and those in power don't defend him. They either just stand by the decision because it was proved in court that thing's never been wrong, or they say, hey, by the end of it, they pled guilty to murdering those children. Case closed. Good night. Next doc.
They take care of the hard part. Oh, come on, dude. We were just getting the good part. Skip this hat. Are you... Hello? Hey, Nick, what's going on?
Not much, man.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just watching your newest upload.
No way, dude.
Yeah, I was like, yo, I'll get that back, bro. You should have heard me.
Hey, I just want to let you know I decided on.
What happened?
I'm going with
What'd you decide on?
Rewind.
Rewind? Okay, this one's just gonna be fucked up and sad, so let me just get this out of the way now. Duh! It's rewind time. I hate this. Meet Sasha, his father, Henry, and his mother, Jackie. Now, Henry and his camera were inseparable. He was always recording something. He was a family vlogger before family vloggers. And honestly, I didn't like him all for it because of that. Shit kind of grosses me out. But because that's who he was, we're supplied with an infinite amount of B-roll for this doc. We're introduced to other family members and hear about how bright of a light Sasha was as a child. The school's telling his parents that he was gifted and would probably need to take special classes. And then the following year, they would be told that Sasha was having a lot of trouble keeping up, falling behind compared to his other classmates. These changes in his behavior, having these outbursts, and even trying to hurt himself, even talk about and attempts at ending his own life. And of course, you know where this is going. You're looking at one of the uncles they've highlighted, thinking the absolute worst. But instead, we're told of an older cousin of his named Stuart, who actually lived with them for some time after being discharged from the Air Force. He would take care of the kids whenever and had a room in the attic. And he would sexually abuse both Sasha and his younger sister, Becca. Now, the timeline is a bit scattered for me personally, but from what I understand, from about 1993 to 1997, sexual abuse was present in that household. Sasha would go to therapy, and through therapy, drawing pictures, which many of them just incredibly unsettling drawings for like a fucking 4-year-old. He drew one describing something that his Uncle Larry did to him. So Sasha was not only being abused by Stuart, but also by his uncle Larry Nevison and his other uncle, Howard Nevison, who we're told was the worst of them all. The abuse started when Sasha was about 3 or 4 years old, and from what I understand, I believe Becca's only perpetrator was Stuart. So you're watching this and you're already disgusted and taken aback at this fucking family of child molesters. But what always kills me in these docs are those moments where you hear about how this could have been stopped so much earlier. This could have been prevented. Those small windows of salvation shut by the ones needed most in that moment. For example, let's start with their pediatrician. Sasha had an abrasion on his private parts, and according to his mother, she asked the doctor if it was possible that this was caused by an adult's inappropriate actions. Because all Sasha said was that another kid pinched him, but wouldn't say anything else. The doctor's response? You don't want to open that door. Which, please, Enlighten me, Doc. If we report that, they will come to your house, remove your husband from the house. This will become public and be terrible for your family. Okay? You got some fair cons there. Should we talk about the pros? No. Just let me mention one then, which would be possibly preventing my son from being sexually abused again, which I would like to think outweighs all that stupid shit you just said. And listen, I don't love to take aim at parents in these situations. I think hindsight can very much skew our opinions, but I can't not mention it either, because even with what that moron said, why listen to him and think, you're right, Doc. I'm so glad I'm speaking to an attorney. But before I continue, you do need more unfortunate context. Henry was called in by Sasha's psychiatrist and told about these allegations towards Uncle Howard. This was after the abrasion situation. And Henry's response was, well, I know he's not lying because Howard did the same thing to me when I was a kid. And now the doc's flipped on its head. Howard, when they were growing up, sexually abused both of his brothers, Larry and Henry. Henry was the youngest, so because of the unfortunate cycle that abuse is, Larry also did the same to Henry. But once again, having this weird distinction being made between the two, Howard's abuse appearing to come from a much darker place, more aggressive, more violent, him being the one to tell Sasha that if he told anybody, he would kill him. Now then, Jackie, up until that point, had no idea that Henry had been abused, let alone that there was any history of abuse in his family. And she was, upon learning this, I would say justifiably furious that something like that was never mentioned, especially when those people were very much welcomed into their home with easy access to their children. And Henry's reasoning for this, I don't think I have a right to really criticize it as much as my immediate reflexes really want to, so I will just present it as is. He says that he didn't even know what sexual abuse even was, right? He thought what happened to him was this anomaly. And he says, had he known that there was a possibility of it occurring again, that his brothers would have never stepped foot in the house. And since the timeline isn't always exact when we're talking about specific moments, it's hard for me to make specific statements accurately. Like Jackie brings up a time where Sasha and Uncle Howard were up in Sasha's bedroom while everybody's over. She said she felt weird about it, so she went up to Sasha's bedroom that was closed, knocked, asking, what are you guys doing? And Howard said, oh, we're good, we're having uncle-nephew time. And she did not push any further and walked away. I'm not here to play a blame game, I don't think that's entirely fair. It's just tough to hear these parts as well, because in what world do you walk away there? Especially when you're telling us you initially felt off about it. Why the fuck is the door closed? You're in my house, you weirdo fuck. Your family's a staircase away. Jesus Christ. So they discover what's been happening and they speak to police. At this point, they know where to find Larry. Stuart is somewhere, but they should be able to wrangle him up. And Howard is in New York City. And not only that, but Howard is a cantor in the world's largest synagogue. High-profile people walk through there. He's a man highly regarded by his community. That man has sang for the Pope. He might be a bit trickier to corner. Larry gets visited first, confidently denies the allegations for whatever reason. I mean, obviously you're gonna say no, that you didn't do it, but he tells him, give me a polygraph exam. Okay, failed that shit, and he confesses. He's charged early February, facing 17 to 22 years, and they're able to charge Stuart late February. He sees how bad Larry got it and says, fuck that, I'll take a plea. And I guess he also admitted to Larry abusing him as well. He gets about a year and a half and has to go to a halfway house. Howard is, once again, the challenge. They approved their arrest in February, and even in the arrest footage we're shown, there's just this ugly confidence that reeks from him. He ends up calling the head district attorney in Manhattan off his cell phone, and detectives immediately see the power this man really has. Not only that, but there's hesitancy because Sasha doesn't know if he's ready to testify and face Howard in court. And in this doc, there is dedicated time to the good in the world as well. One of those people being Sasha's maternal great-grandfather, Joseph Newlinger, who loved Sasha very much. Sasha loved him so much that when he decided he no longer wanted to share the Nevison name, the name of his abusers, he legally had his name changed to Sasha Joseph Newlinger. Joseph had passed, and Sasha's psychiatrist wanted his great-grandfather to protect him during the court process. So they gave him one of Joseph's yarmulkes to hold on to, and whenever he felt unsure of himself, he could pull it out and put it on to have him by his side. And the day came, and Sasha courageously stood up against his abuser, confidently delivered his testimony, even with the defense trying to confuse this little boy. And halfway through his testimony, he pulls out the yarmulke, puts it on, and continues to testify. Unfortunately, the defense was relentless. They filed motions left and right, delaying the process more and more. The synagogue stood by Howard and even fundraised money for his defense fund. So the defense was playing with house money and took full advantage of that. Howard is being charged with 1 felony and 5 misdemeanors. The felony charge could result in up to 20 years. And at this point, the case has dragged on so long that Sasha's driving a car in the B-roll, and the defense tries to propose a plea. Howard will plead guilty to the 5 misdemeanors, but not to the felony. And although Sasha was initially hellbent on taking Howard to trial and trying to stick that felony to him, he later decides to take their plea. He was worried that the trial could potentially end in Howard walking away completely scot-free, and not only that, look at how much time has passed. He wanted to move on with his life. I couldn't imagine how draining it would be to not only be in and out of court in general, but be forced to relive this horrific part of his life, day in and day out in detail. So after a 4+ year long court case, they take the plea, and Howard gets hit with a whopping 12-year probation, which is just fucking preposterous. I can't fault Sasha for not wanting to go through with the trial, but even with that decision, the fact that Howard could walk away with a slap on the wrist and a little head shake of, "You can't talk to kids under 12 anymore, okay?" is fucking insane. The worst perpetrator of all 3 men received the most lenient sentence and isn't gonna serve 1 day behind bars. It's a rather depressing reality to think that if Howard was just Howard the librarian, he'd probably die in prison. This one is of course disturbing. It's genuinely sad on both ends of the spectrum. There were happy tears, sad tears, and something we're all too familiar with, just a tiny flash of a happy ending. If you guys enjoyed this season finale, please leave a like and subscribe. We'll be coming out with more, all types of stuff. Huge shout out to Wendigoon, Nick Crowley, Nexpo, and Reignbot for helping out with this video. If for some reason you don't know about them, go watch their content, dumbass. Shout out to my lovely Patreon members. They support me monthly and get video exclusives monthly that are sometimes late. Gamer subs, code Mr. GG, 10% off, always. And just thank you guys for supporting the series and making it what it is today. It's crazy. These videos just always get so much love. And as always, I am Mr. GG, and I am out. Bah.